Maybe I should wear my best craft beer hat, like literally. Hang on.
We are live. Let me just. Yep, we are good. Afternoon, folks. Hope you guys have a beer at hand. I've got the, what have I got? The Octa Ale from RHBC. Let me know what you're drinking so I know that the sound is working and that you can hear me. Welcome along to our first real episode of Friday Beers. The success of the last week's Fools and Fans Meet the Brewers has motivated me to continue this as a regular thing, or at least through lockdown, but hopefully beyond that. Yesterday's announcement by South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has naturally changed the topics that we'll be discussing today quite dramatically. I'm finding it pretty difficult to be positive today. Extending the lockdown by a further 2 weeks is going to have dire consequences for millions of South Africans. And I often read that this virus doesn't discriminate, but lockdown does, and lockdown hits the poorest people in our society the most. There's an obvious knockdown effect here from talking to many brewers over the last couple of weeks. Some of our favorite breweries will not survive this additional lockdown period, and many jobs are going to be lost. Some of the strict restrictions that are in place need to be changed. We're joined this afternoon by Rory from Aegir Project, Niall from RHBC, and Brendan from Frontier and Best Craft Beer. Thanks for joining us, guys.
All right, thanks.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Brendan, let's start with you. Let's just tell us a little bit about what you've been trying to do to lift the ban on alcohol sales, on online sales, alcohol sales.
Yeah, I mean, we've just been signing the petitions and letters to ministers wherever we can, wherever we belong or we feel we're adding value to that call. We've been doing that. That's completely out of our hands. But what we've gotten on with in the meantime is trying to essentially pre-sell beer. So you'll get your beer immediately post the bans on alcohol and the bans on moving alcohol. We made a few calls out to beer fans and customers around the country, and the response was incredible. Last week, Friday, we had our single best day of sales, and that is people buying beer, sort of uncertain exactly about when they get it, but they know they're going to get a really quality selection of beer in the mixed cases we put together from brands all around the country. But it was really heartwarming and inspiring to have people climb in that way. It wasn't beer that was going to serve them during this lockdown, which is frustrating for them. But they've done it because they know they're getting good beer and they're supporting small business, and that was fantastic to see. So, we've been trying to push sales for all brands that way, and make payments this month, which might be some of the only payments that brands get with a lot of their customers all on lockdown and all facing their own cash flow crises. So it's a hell of a situation we're in. We're just trying to hope, as a brand owner myself, a beer brand owner, that we can put on ice what needs to be put on ice and get to the other side and still be strong the other side. So yeah, it's a really tough situation. I mean, but for prohibition, we could have moved a lot of beer to some thirsty households, but it wasn't to be. I'm still hoping that there's some relaxation on e-commerce. It's a big move if government makes it. I think it's the right one, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen. I mean, the leaders are in a tight bind, and we're all just searching for answers and ways to get through the next not just 21 days, because the hospitality trade is going to be affected beyond that. It's all, I mean, every day we're trying to reposition ourselves and remap our forecasting on news. And it's been an incredibly sort of taxing few weeks for everyone in the industry. So I'm with everyone on that.
We've had much sleep with our brains going crazy trying to figure out the next steps.
That's right. Waking up at 2 a.m. and like doing the ceiling and, yeah, but I mean, the more we come together, the more we sort of co-support, the more we can reach out to people, not just to buy beer, but if we look at the greater economy, the life cycle benefits of buying local and independent are, the economic life cycle benefits of that are hugely important. And so buy your bread, your cheese, your furniture, your beer. Please, ratify all your buying decisions with where that money's going, because it's going to help everyone. It's going to help you, me, everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. I mean, like the big supermarkets and those guys have done very well out of this whole thing, but I mean, all the independents have severely struggled. So yeah, we got Alex joining us here. Andrew Murray from Fermented also asks, is Rory going to ride his BB bike today?
It is out of commission. Ball bearings blasted out. So
his beer's also frozen as well. Who puts beer in freezers? Murray. Matthew Hurst is joined. Steve Peel and Rob Cass. There you go, Brendan. You can have a little chat with Rob now. So
yeah,
you were just saying off before we started.
Do you want to review this lager with me, Rob?
Matthew Hurst is in a bit of a predicament. He's only got 16% beers left.
Oh, teaspoons at a time.
I'm also on the big beers today. So currently on Octo Ale, then we got a small, it's quite small, Brendan, this one, eh? 10%.
What's that though?
It's just the smoke.
Yeah.
I don't know what ABV this is. I'm assuming it's just a nice light session one, because it doesn't say, but I'm assuming it's really low.
We never got that one tested, but it's about 8.5. Not sure what it did in the barrel.
So talking again about that alcohol ban, do you guys foresee it being lifted? I see that Sile says this week that he'd like it to go on past lockdown. He seems to think that prohibition is a good thing for the country. It seemed to work very well in the States, as I recall, quite a few years back. So yeah, maybe he doesn't read history literature, but yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on getting the prohibition measures slackened, and how we go about that during the next 3 weeks?
I have very mixed emotions. I understand why they've taken that decision, but unfortunately, it's just damaging a large amount of workforce. All of us employ a lot of people, so it's a knock-on effect. I honestly, anytime I speak to anybody on the subject, it always ends with the words, "I don't know." I would imagine they would probably start by relaxing some of the laws, but I don't see them just full blown allowing things to go back to the normal straight after the lockdown. I think this is going to be a little bit more of a long-term game for the alcohol and sin taxes and things like that. I don't know the facts and numbers, but I know that the country loses out on a lot of money from this move. So they're not taking it lightly. Again, I'm just going to end it with a firm I don't really know.
I heard something like hundreds of millions of rands in revenue. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me to quote, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't have exact numbers, but I seem to remember the beer industry matching the mining industry on
yes.
On
That's
sales.
what Antiwa was saying.
Yeah.
Which is and obviously a few less workforce, but revenue-wise, that's a lot of money for our economy.
But I still think that alcohol is quite low on their list. I can't see them thinking alcohol is something that they would want to relax anytime soon.
They're definitely associating alcohol with social enjoyment. So they I just don't. Yeah, I don't know what.
Because it is. I mean, that's how we always sell alcohol on a social basis, right? I mean, it's you enjoy beer with friends. You know, that's the point of it, right? But
yes. So it's
yeah,
kind of hard
but
to go straight into an opposite side of that marketing of, hey, enjoy it at home. You know?
yeah. But I mean, you know, you live in a household. Most of us live in a household with more than, like, fortunate to live in a household, I should say, with more than just ourselves. You know, so you are still enjoying
Sure.
that in that, you know, you enjoy with your wife or your, you know, like whoever you're living with, and it's,
If you're lucky enough to have outdoors, you get to sit outside, have a braai, and share some beer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a big driver for them is, you know, the concerns about domestic violence, and then just social unrest again, unruliness, looting. You know, I think
It's going to be very difficult for them to relax that with how do you say some people can have it, some can't? I think it's going to be.
Mhm.
I
That's
think
right.
you have to be a carte blanche.
Sure.
Across the board.
I know that's the position we find ourselves in. It's you know, it's delivering craft beer to people's homes is not you're not playing to the concerns of our leadership, but you're you know, what makes you special, sort of thing. And
yeah, for sure.
You know, that's
I think everybody is sitting in a predicament of how long is your beer gonna handle sitting. That's a lot of stock of, and beers, I mean, as many people don't realize, but it is obviously a perishable good that needs to be consumed within a certain lifespan. So that's the concern of everyone, is like how quickly can we start producing and selling?
Yeah.
That stock.
And how much are we actually going to lose? Because I mean, 2 weeks going into lockdown, we had a West Coast IPA going to tank. And I mean, that's been ready for, after the lockdown, it's going to be pushing 8 weeks sitting in the tank. And I mean, that's the last type of beer that you want to be sitting in the tank. That needs to finish maturing, get it packaged out to the consumer, drunk quickly before it oxidizes and all of those nasty things. But yeah, can't really do much about that. So now we have to sell shit beer to the consumer when we open up again, if we want to try and recoup our costs, which, I mean, we can't do stuff like that.
And well, I mean, none of you three guys on here are going to do that. I know that for a fact. Some people might, but I definitely know that none of you three would. So yeah.
Yeah, it's all about that long term. I mean, you don't want to throw away stock, but if you're selling beer that's not good, then you don't have those future sales. So it's a tricky one to play. I would imagine there's going to probably be a fair amount of beer going out that's going to be borderline, like, shelf
Acceptable.
life. Yeah.
There's an interesting question here from Tom Law. He says, "Hi guys, best wishes from lockdown in the UK. Is the South African government offering a furlough scheme for employees?" So that's in the UK. They've offered a scheme where they will where you can temporarily lay off your employees, and the government will pay 80% of their salaries for the period of lockdown. Have you guys been helped by the government during this time at all? What schemes have they been offered? What have been offered?
We have been promised. I don't know if you guys have had any better success, but we've applied and we're sitting waiting. We're sending emails trying to find out what's going on. We have been
applied for, Rory?
Sorry?
I say, what have you applied for?
For temporary employee relief, which I think goes between 30 to 60%, depending on the salary that the employee was earning. The higher your salary, the smaller the percentage that they will pay. It's been promised, but not too sure whether that's actually going to come into the accounts or not.
So, I mean, from my experience with it now, with applying for TERS, is, I mean, we started the whole process ages ago, trying to do it. As soon as we heard that this lockdown was going to happen, we started putting everything in place, getting our staff to apply for it, getting their bank account details and all of that. And obviously it has changed day by day leading up to this point. But we are now sitting in a situation where we've opened up our extra accounts where we can receive this money from TERS or UIF, and we're just sitting and we're waiting. And the only feedback we've got from them is stating, yes, it'll be paid out within 30 days. But I mean, our staff can't last 30 days. I mean, there's no chance they're going to be able to. I mean, we're already coming up to 2 weeks in of lockdown. A lot of these guys weren't working the week before lockdown. So a lot of these guys, 3 weeks in, they haven't had any type of income, and we might only see a bit of income in the next 30 days or so. So I mean, it's all well and good that that they are assisting us, but the time that it's taking for the assistance to come through is not feasible. So it's the same situation as if they've got no money.
Yeah, it's an awkward one, a very awkward one with staffing. It actually really it saddens me how we've had to become we've always treated all our staff like family, and then eventually you put in a position where you have to say that one is more important than that one. Just keep the business alive, otherwise there's no business for future staff. It really saddens me to be put in that position. Like, we've always strived ourselves as not that type of business. Excuse, my daughter might run into frame. We've got some clothes on.
No,
hold on.
I think Murray says here that that's what UIF is for, but you have to retrench your staff for them to get that first.
Yeah, that's right. You have to. Sorry, sure. Neil has a different option because you're saying that you applied early on. Did you have to retrench your staff or have you applied for it in a different manner?
So the way I understand it is, so TERS is the fund that has been put in place to ensure that we do not have to retrench people. So initially, the information that was coming out a couple of days before the lockdown was apply for TERS. This is what it's all about. This is what you need to do. That obviously changed as it went on a couple of days. That changed, but yeah. So TERS is to make sure that you can get some sort of funding, but keep your people still working for you. But if TERS doesn't come through, then we're going to have to retrench them, because that's the only way that they could get some sort of income if we can't help them out. Because then we can get them, they can go and apply for UIF.
But that, as you say, that takes time. So it's like which one do you do? Which one do you lay down first? Because you apply for the TERS, it takes time, it gets rejected. Now you have to retrench, and then they can only apply after that's been logged. And it's I think that's always been South Africa's problem, is the red tape and how long it takes to get anything done through the government.
The one thing to remember is, like, we trying to do everything that we can to help our employees, but on another note, I mean, this is their government too. So I keep saying to them, look, we will do what we can, but please, from your side, put pressure on the government. Send emails through to these funding people, to TERS, to UIF, to like try and, like, the more pressure we can put on the government, hopefully maybe something will come of it. But yeah,
there's gonna be a lot of people out there without incomes right now, and they offer all these. They're offering, like, if Cyril goes on TV yesterday and says they're offering this and all these promises, but if the guys can't actually get it, then it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Or they get it too late.
Or they get it too late. Exactly. Yeah. Steve, sorry, go on.
Sorry, no, I was just saying that's the main difference between the UK and here is they're a lot more set up, and they seem to be a lot quicker. So,
well, I don't know if they are so quick. I also watched this guy on YouTube that runs a brewery, and he still hasn't received the payment that he was promised for the furloughed staff there. So seems to be also a lot of promises there, but slow in delivering. So not necessarily unique here, even though they might end up getting it quicker in the UK. It doesn't seem to be happening as quick as they would have hoped. This is one guy's opinion, so
Yeah.
I haven't. Yeah.
I think we need to. I was reading. I don't want to be too doom and gloom, but I was reading articles about how, because I think we're facing a similar sort of some similar scenarios in terms of the global economy, and it was all about coming out, and prohibition being part of that. Obviously, this is a shorter term prohibition than we saw there. Don't know if you've. Let me lost video.
I just stopped your video because your voice was breaking up. Sorry, Brendan. Carry on. Carry on talking.
Okay. Yeah, 100. So, and yeah, the message was pretty clear. It's all about diversifying and innovating and finding ways and producing non-alcohol this and non-alcohol that. We've seen some guys moving into sanitizer. I don't know, just leveraging the resources and assets you have and the skills you have in your team or brewery or your plant, its capabilities in whatever way possible, just to get to the other side. And the guys that got to the other side, had maybe had the most fitness to start with in terms of their human resourcing and financial position and things like that. But they were strong. They were strong because of getting to the other side. And yeah, it's really tough. But I think I've been racking my brain the last few days around, those aspects. Obviously, the online business and trying to drive what sales I can there has consumed me. But that's finite. People aren't just going to keep buying into a vacuum when they're only getting their beer in 3 weeks. So
yeah, for sure.
It's just find a way, just leverage what you have, what you can make, the skills you have. Short of putting everything on ice, that's what we face.
Yeah. Try and start your video again, Brendan. Sorry, just see if that comes back. Steve also asks here about the malt and hop suppliers. They'll also be struggling. Will we have fresh stock available? And will we have to buy fresh stock when we reopen?
To be honest, I wouldn't worry too much. I mean, our ingredients always only harvested once a year anyway. That'll be in storage. Supplies will be there as long as the suppliers can survive without sales over this period. So I wouldn't worry about not having supply. I know that the hop harvests overseas all managed to finish their harvests, as far as I'm aware, unless you guys know otherwise. But everybody's managed to finish harvests everywhere. So there is stock as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. I guess some of those suppliers have bigger reserves, maybe, or at least the companies that supply them do anyway.
Well, I mean, they're going to be pivoting their businesses probably equally as much as we are, trying to figure out how to create some sort of income over the next few months to balance it out until they're back on their feet, until everyone's back on their feet. And I would imagine they probably have a bit more of a knock-on effect as we feel it, they'll feel it a few months behind us type thing.
Yeah. Okay, so Kai is asking that it's Friday afternoon and his mummy says we need to find something more cheerful to chat about. Otherwise, she's going to drown herself in the pool.
Yeah, there's a lot of very sad things going on. So
I did very much want this chat to be positive today, and then obviously last night
straight into it.
I'm struggling to be positive, but yeah.
Let's talk about that West Coast Pale Ale that you got, IPA in tank.
Yes, go for it, Neil.
Okay, so Mike, you're actually drinking Octo X Ale at the moment.
No, I'm actually drinking
you
Holy
moved on.
Smokes by Brendan now. I finished that one way too easily. That's it's only 6.3%. This is going to go really badly, this talk eventually. But yeah, Octavex was cool.
Octavex is cool. But what I wanted to do, and it was actually for fools and fans, I was brewing this beer for that. Wanted it to be the same beer, but brewed in a West Coast IPA style. So same hops, slightly different malt profile to match more of a West Coast IPA. And yeah, so I mean, I managed to steal some from the brewery tank 2 nights ago, and I had that for dinner. And I mean, it's like the perfect time to package it now. It's tasting so good. I mean, there's all this lovely tropical nose to it, lots of grapefruit, a little bit of mango, orange rind, and it's got a really nice crisp bitterness, which I was looking for. So I'm super excited about it. Let's see, when we open up, I'll put it into cans. We get all the cans ready, the labels ready, everything's good to go. I'll get it to Brendan as quickly as possible, so you can move it in Joburg. And
Neil, are you not able to? I mean, it's probably better that it just stays in tank, right? You don't want to package it and hold it. Yeah, just leave it in tank and package it last minute. Yeah,
exactly.
You have the luxury of a canning facility there, so it makes it easy for you to pick and choose when you package it.
Exactly.
Lucy's determined to turn this chat into a karaoke session.
Remove it now, please. Thank you.
Rory, do you do karaoke?
No, not
Brendan?
my style.
I once sang on that SingStar app, you know, where it rates your performance, and I pulled a tone deaf. So I'm not one of those talented people.
Lucy, majority rules here. We're not doing. You can carry on karaoke in the text chat.
It sounds like Brendan could have his arm twisted though, so maybe a beer or two in.
Well, I think after we rock this Cuban, I maybe even my arm might be twisted. But at the minute,
you'll be singing.
Brendan, tell us about this Holy Smokes, this barley wine.
Yeah, so that was a barley wine that I wanted to brew, you know, inspired by whiskey. So I had some of my favorite whiskeys are those lightly peated. I like heavily peated whiskeys as well, but some of the lighter peated varieties like Springbank, going into more peated like Lagavulin. And I thought, you know, peat and beer doesn't go. It's not they're not very easy bedfellows, because the sort of chlorophenols, you're kind of trained to recognize them as faults, and you can get similar compounds from peated malts. But I thought a big sort of malty sweet beer like a barley wine would be able to carry it quite well. So I wanted to kind of make a beer that took inspiration from those Islay type distilleries. And I also put a bit of sea salt into it. So it has 2 to 3, I think it is 3% peated malt, a little bit of sea salt. I wanted to kind of evoke that seaside Dunwich warehouse character you get from some of those whiskies. And it was aged in a bourbon barrel.
Yeah, I get a lot of whiskey on it. Yeah, like a lot of whiskey characteristics. I mean, like it's really nice, eh?
Yeah, thank you. Look, it came out the barrel sort of quite hot in the mouth still. Like, you know, it was a big beer, and it picked up some tannins and, you know, maybe some residual alcohol, and I felt like it would age well. I actually did hold that back almost a year, and it really did. It's now, there's no sort of heat in the mouth. You get the warming sensation down the neck. So I was really pleased the way it turned out. It came together, you know, quite nicely, and it sold out like that. You know, it was such a surprise.
How do you guys have the patience to wait with beers like this? I know, like Rory, and even like Neil, with your phases of Jan you did, and obviously all of like a lot of your beers, Brendan. Like I struggled not to drink beers that I make like that way too young, and then always find a bottle at the back of the fridge later and think, shit, I should have left this thing. But I have no patience for those sort of beers. How do you guys get that patience?
Personally, I feel
out of sight, out of mind. Like I
think Brendan's connection's breaking up a bit there.
Carry on, Rory.
So sorry, just one sec. Oh, oh. I personally feel that the long term is what really gets me excited, is when you try herd a sheep, a pack of sheep or something, and eventually you get it exactly where you want it to be. That's when I get the goosebumps, when nature's done its thing and you've done your best to guide nature. It's not us making the beer, it's nature making the beer. And the only thing that creates that is time. And obviously just trying your best to get it to where you want it to be. So when you do nail it after time, it's like just that much more exciting for me personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very rewarding. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very rewarding feeling like, flip, a year ago we brewed this beer and we babysat it, and it's come out as close to what we hoped it would be.
Neil, what are you drinking? One of the questions is, I'm getting a lot of shit, by the way, for my background on the beach, so I've changed it now. But what are you drinking, Neil?
I've moved on to one of the homebrewers beers that they've dropped off for me. It's Peter Daly's beer. He got an infection in it was an Irish red that he brought to me to taste before the lockdown. And we tasted it and I was like, but like flip, the sourness is very good. It's a nice sour. It's like it's very clean and everything. I said, please don't throw it away. Go home and put some blueberries into the secondary and leave it on the blueberries for a while. So he's done that, hence the color. And I mean, this is the first time I'm trying now, and it's kept.
It's always nice when you get an infection and it turns out to be fucking better than the beer was going to be anyway.
It's very tasty, I must admit.
Andrew, there's the bottle that I'm drinking. I've got rid of my background. There we go. They didn't like my beach, apparently. Majority rules, so I've got rid of my beach.
Very cool.
What have we got question-wise here? They like your sheep analogy, Rory. That was good.
Oh, really?
I think we're all a little bit guilty of being sheep lately as well, but that's a different story. Well, let's try and pick a non-negative topic here. So emerging trends worldwide. Pre-lockdown, we saw a lot of hard seltzers and flavor like fruit beers and different types of like non-beer drinks. I think even like in the States, alcoholic kombucha is quite popular, and a lot of guys serve that on tap. What do you see of these trends in South Africa? Obviously, we have a different marketplace, and we also have like a bit of a lag on trends here. But like, what do you see of those trends making their way into our marketplace, and what's your guys' thoughts on them?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, sorry, Neil, go ahead.
No, go, Brendan. It's cool. I'll get.
No, I think kombucha will do reasonably well. I mean, we're already seeing it appear in retailers. I think it's delicious when it's well made, and there's a lot you can do with it. It's quite underexplored. We're actually producing some. We meant to produce some already, but COVID shut that down on a contract basis for one brand and on ourselves. So we were actually going to serve a dry hop kombucha at Fools and Fans, which I was disappointed I couldn't bring over. But you know, it plays to an alcohol alternative. What I quite like about it is if you're feeling like a drink, like a wine or a beer or something, but you're trying to cut down your alcohol, it's quite a good alternative. It's got that fermented character, some of those mouthfeel and flavor aspects to it, and it's quite a status. It kind of partially saturates that urge in a way that is, you know, I mean, look, I think there's a lot of claims around kombucha that are probably a little bit overdone, but there's no question it's good for your stomach acids, and it's got antioxidants in it, so it's a good drink. I think there's legs in in that line of wellness or alcohol alternatives.
What
and
ABV
low alcohol.
did you make that one at?
Say again.
What alcohol percentage did you make that one at?
I didn't test it, but I was expecting it to be around the sort of 0.5 to 0.7%.
Oh, so not an alcoholic kombucha, just a dry hopped.
No,
red
kind of
kombucha.
fairly traditional. Yeah, letting it break down the alcohols and that's how I would want to bring that kombucha forward, probably as a non-alcoholic product. It's one of my diversification strategies, survival strategies. But I also happen to like the drink. Like I like sour beers. I like the freshness. And kombuchas, the pHs can be quite low without it being very puckering or sort of marginalizing in terms of its sourness. And I think there's legs in that game, and I would encourage brewers to maybe look at options there during this time.
Niall, do you have any? Yeah.
Brennan, I've got a question for you actually, because I've had other people approach me with wanting to do kombucha and that, and I've done a bit of research into it and all of that, and been quite interested and keen to do it because I do like kombucha, but the thing that keeps putting me off is the potential for cross-contamination within the brewery.
Sure.
So, I mean, like, what are your thoughts on that? What are you doing or wanting to do to minimize that?
Well, absolutely. Look, we have 2 plants essentially. Well, I'm a partner in Brewster's Craft, and that's where we do our scale production of beers of ours that have traction or certain sales volumes. And then our Weinberg plant is essentially a nano brewery where we do whatever the fuck we want, sort of thing. And that includes mixed fermentation beers in proximity to clean fermentation. So we don't mix ferment in tank, we do that in barrel. But with kombucha, you're going to be doing it in tank. We just happen to have one tank that's not particularly well suited for beers. It's difficult to it's not conical, it's difficult to clean thermal wells and things like that, and it's got a big opening, and you need an opening for kombucha for access to oxygen. So I was going to dedicate that tank and lines to kombucha and have it somewhat physically separated from the rest of the plant. But it is a small plant, and small plants are kind of easier to get into all the corners and sanitize. And also there's managed risk in that plant, because if we cross-contaminate a batch, it's not like a 2,000 liter batch. Say again, Neil, I didn't hear that.
I was saying, and your packaging equipment, because like for me, my biggest concern, I can isolate one tank and use one tank, but the other thing is I'm going to use the same canning line that I'm using for everything else. I can't have a separate canning line. So that's where my big fear is.
Steam.
Yeah.
No, steam generator.
Look. Yeah. Steam, hot caustic plus acid. I mean, I've been using hot caustic plus acid. I chase I bottle some mixed fermentation beers, and then I immediately, everything's still wet. The hot caustic goes through and sits for a little bit, and then the acid goes through. And again, look, it's a managed risk scenario in a nano plant. It's a bit different to having a big commercial plant and sort of practicing the same way. Your consequence is higher. But I've done it a fair bit. I mean, we've been making mixed fermentation beers alongside clean beers from day one, and I've never had an issue that I can attribute to cross-contamination. I've dumped beers because of valves and thermal well issues and things like that, but I can't think of a case that I would attribute to cross-contamination. But that is because you're giving quite a lot of shit about how we clean things. And as I said earlier, we can be a bit more cavalier on a smaller plant.
Rory, do you have a different take on these drinks?
To be honest, I don't drink a lot of those sort of things. So to be honest, not a heck of a lot. The only thing I'm sort of taking away from it are sort of more fruited beers, sour beers. We've actually got a pretty fun one in tank sitting there ready to be packaged. The same deal. It was ready to be packaged a few weeks ago. But it's sitting nice and cold. A little bit of pressure on it. But it's a collaboration we did with Fierce Brewery. It's a passion fruit and guava sour IPA, and then double dry hopped with Eldorado. It's a monster beer. It's the most unique beer we've made so far.
Nice.
So that's like the angle that I'm sort of looking at these things is cool. I get to brew beer in a different fashion.
But you've also dabbled a lot in like hybrid wine beer scenarios, and you even made a full-on wine this year, which actually there's a question about that, which I'm just going to ask you now as well. So your Sauvignon Blanc, how's it been tasting lately? Andrew asks, he never managed to get to Nuremberg to get a bottle, but he sees that the government have approved wine exports. Durbanville counts as an export, right? But how's it tasting? I had a couple bottles of that, and I thought it was amazing. Like I'm going to say Bretty notes, the terroir that you don't often experience in wine were completely unique and very interesting. Yeah.
That, to be honest, is the winemaker that I was working with. It's probably it's a lot more on their plate than it is mine. To be honest, they guided me a lot on that. But yeah, it should have a few sort of Brett characters, which is very highly frowned upon in the wine world. You don't use the dreaded B word.
Or at least in traditional wine. I mean, a lot of these modern winemakers are dabbling with more interesting characteristics like Brett and stuff.
It's interesting you say that, because probably more traditionally it would have been in heavily Bretted wines.
Right.
More traditionally.
I mean the brands though, the traditional brands rather than the small young winemakers that are coming out making.
Old world wine would have been funky. Sort of the new world wines are the guys that are really anal about keeping everything to a specific strain of yeast. But yeah, this is a 100% spontaneous fermented Sauvignon Blanc, so there should be all kinds of weird things going on in there. There's
great,
definitely it's drinking really nicely right now. I think, to be brutally honest, I would it's got a lot of legs. I think in a few years that thing's going to be on point. We've still got a fair amount left, actually. And yeah, as soon as that passport control opens up, we'll be exporting.
I'm going to buy some in case it gets shut down again.
True.
I've realized throughout this that I thought I'd stockpiled enough on craft beers, and I failed. I had to brew quite a bit of beer this lockdown period, although we shouldn't say that on YouTube because apparently home brewing might also be illegal now. So let me we're live. We can't scratch that out. Never mind. Neil, Featherstone Brewery up by you in Grahamstown. Have you had any of their beers recently? Did they not change hands? Am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah, so William Yell, he has taken over Featherstone.
Okay.
And he's now brewing their brands for them.
He was from Joburg, home brewer from Joburg originally.
Durban? I don't know, but he's based just outside of Grahamstown. He's got a little farm out there, and that's where the brewery is. It's really a cool place. And he's taken over Featherstone, but he's also got his own brand, which is Renaissance, not Renaissance, Intrepid. So actually, I was drinking this before we started. This is one of his.
Nice.
This is
Nice
Renaissance, which is a Kottbosser. Kottbosser is a traditional German wheat beer that has a bit of honey to it as well, a bit of oats. And then noble hops with a bit of, I think it was, I don't remember, I think it was Hallertau and Mittelfrüh. that was hopped with. But yeah, it's very, very easy drinking, very sessionable. Interesting beer with the honey coming through. Yeah. So I mean,
I tried that. It was awesome. I really enjoyed that beer.
Yeah, and I mean, the stuff that he's doing is really, really cool. And I think, yeah, everyone needs to look out for him. When we open up again, I think we're going to be seeing a hell of a lot more of William. And yeah, the beers that he's doing are all great.
Cool. Hi to David from the UK. David's tuned in. I think everyone here met David. Oh no, Rory wasn't there. Brendan and Neil met David at Fools and Fans last year. He was supposed to come over this year, but obviously couldn't make it. Rory, Andrew asks, your ode to the harvest for the season was meant to be with Grenache grapes. Is that right?
Yes. Just 1 second. My daughter is going to kill me. 1 second.
No problem. Let me ask a different question and come back to that one. Erica says, any seasonal limited release beers we can look forward to after lockdown? I'm sure there is plenty of recipes and research happening now. Yeah, you guys been brewing much, home brewing or creating recipes, playing around?
We've kind of pre-released Haymaker 3, which was the third barrel expression of our collaboration with Hazeldean, Frontier and Hazeldean. I'm most excited about this one out of all three. I think it's played beautifully with the rum barrel. It's slightly higher alcohol, slightly richer, more mouthfeel, more sort of clingy to the glass than previous versions of that Imperial Stout. So that's getting packaged and we've been pre-selling it. And it'll serve people well this winter or next. Research, I haven't had the time I would like. Actually, it's been a lot busier than people might expect, just in terms of everything you're trying to caretake and options you're trying to tease out and future projects you're trying to work on. We consider ourselves to be quite adventurous, and we're always doing weird things. I want to play a lot more with kombucha. I made a carrot cake ale for Fools and Fans. It was a kind of a pastry ale. Nice. Which I was kind of pleased with. I haven't finished it. I was going to spice it towards the end and add lemon zest to try and evoke all of those carrot cake and iced carrot cake flavors. But it was just something wacky. I just thought I would do something weird, and I was kind of pleased with it where it is. It's sitting in the cold room waiting to be finished one day. So hopefully it turns out well.
Nice. So Rory, you're back. Tell us about that Grenache.
Yes, it is packaged up. It's gone through its bottle fermentation, which I'm sure most of the people listening know what that is. But just carbonating itself up naturally, much like your champagne. It is tasting pretty exciting. It's very on point. We have labels printed. We basically ready to go as soon as we allowed to. Our plan that we've moved to is we're going to focus quite a lot on online sales and distribution, hopefully to people's doors. So that should be up on our website coming soon. But it should be ready and able to deliver to your doors as soon as we're up and running.
Awesome. And Ross from White on Rice says that he wants to see more of your stop motion videos on Instagram.
Thanks, Ross. You helped me out loads there. Without you, that wouldn't happen at all.
And Steve says that he hears winemakers don't operate nearly as sanitary as brewers do, which I think is pretty correct. But Murray says they fall back a lot on sulfur. Sorry.
Yeah, so they don't really need to worry as much. Their product is much lower in pH, so it's a lot more acidic. It's a lot higher in alcohol, so it's a lot harsher environment for any wild yeasts or bacteria. So they're a little bit less worried or paranoid than us brewers.
Okay, cool. Matt Savage says, "What did Mike say about home brewing?" Missed that. I've forgotten. What did I say? Oh, home brewing, possibly about the guys, about the police going into the townships and raiding all the Umkhamboti. What did I say about that? I don't know.
Just didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Didn't I?
Leave it there. It goes
Okay.
all dark again.
Cheers, Matt.
Against it. Strongly against it. Yeah.
I think you're gonna leave it path again. Let's not go that route. All you
Not
guys
sure
are drinking fancy beers, so I thought I'd bring out a bottle of Riss.
Oh,
Ooh,
lovely.
how many have you got left, Rory?
I've got about 8 left in the cellar.
Really?
I realized I promised everybody to tell them when the perfect time to drink it is.
Now, during
now's the
lockdown.
perfect time.
Because why not?
Because why not? I actually opened one up a few months ago and it was drinking on point. And as you say, I wish I had just kept this until now. Because it's probably only just really coming into itself.
Ooh, look at that. Oh, I'm gonna open up the Cuban while you're on that then, just because
Get into
I want to join you with something similar. I say similar because it's
the Cuban is similar to nothing.
No, I mean similar because it's a stout. That's about where it ends. But,
I haven't had the privilege of drinking the Cuban yet.
Shit! I'll save you some, Rory. It might be a
Please.
bit flat. It might be a bit flat though.
Please. This whole lockdown has made me realize how many good beers I've actually missed out on. I've been focusing so much. Cheers. Should go into the middle. Everyone cheers in the middle.
Yeah, how do we do this? Ready? Where's your beer? Where's your beer, Neil? Your beer, Neil.
Cheers.
So
Anything?
that-
Anybody? Any
Cuban you
quick?
got
Yeah.
there,
Yes.
sorry, that Cuban you got there, Mark, was also held back in a very disciplined fashion by Marius. I think it's 2 years old, sitting in keg in a cold room. And I was really happy the way it matured. It really developed a fine moose carbonation. I think from the Brett acting on there and just changing that beer chemically as well. So yeah, really kind of fine mouthfeel, which we didn't really quite have on the original. And then some of the tannins relaxed. So it was always quite an extreme beer, quite a marginalizing beer. People loved it or hated it, which is fine. We don't mind making beers that way. But I felt like it sort of came into more of a middling territory, eventually, just from time, as Rory pointed out, like time just letting some of those rough edges kind of knit.
Did you use a bit of peat and malt in that recipe, or is it just all from the whiskey side of it?
So it was a Shiraz barrels from, and talking about Brett and the wine industry, Shiraz barrels from.
Was that the Constantia barrels you had?
Sorry, there?
The Krug Constantia. I think
No.
you got barrel.
It's on the tip of my tongue. It'll come back to me. They're right next door to Karankop. Geez, I'm just drawing a blank. Anyway, so it was originally aged in Shiraz barrels, and then it came out of there with quite a horsey Brett character, and I felt like the beer needed some sort of sweetness, some stitching. At that time, I was playing with toasted cubes, oak cubes, and maple especially was giving off lovely sort of quite primary vanilla sweetness. So I actually cubed that beer out of barrel with toasted American oak and toasted maple, and just gave it a bit of sweetness, and then it got sort of bottle aged or keg aged. So yeah, a Brett Imperial Stout with French oak, Shiraz barrels, toasted American oak, and maple makes it a fairly unrepeatable beer. And a lot of that Brett is wineland Brett. So I think the wine industry.
Let's not name that winery, huh?
Well, I think all of the old barrels in the wine industry. I mean, I think it's quite prevalent, Brett, in the South African wine scene. And as you say, the alcohol of wine subdues Brett. I mean, I'm very sensitive to Brett now, and I pick it up in red wines from time to time. But those were fresh barrels, and the Brett enjoyed playing around in a lower alcohol environment of an 8% Imperial Stout compared with the wine Murati.
Oh,
Murati
nice.
barrel.
Nice.
Yeah.
How old is this now?
That must be 3 years now. Must be
Nice.
close to 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Quite weird, eh? Quite all sorts of things going on there.
it's just it's lovely. it's gonna finish me off. It's gonna finish this whole chat off as well. We're gonna descend into like anarchy here, but but it's awesome. Rory, Warren Lino asks, will you be canning beers like the Pale Ale and the California Steam for off-license sales in the future?
Absolutely. We as you guys all mentioned, how you have to look at what you're doing and pivot your business. We're pivoting quite heavily into packaging and home deliveries. So we will be packaging all of our beers. We got the closest thing we're going to do to like our Pale Ale in the core range that you're asking about is a 3.6% single hop Galaxy, which is also on its time to get packaged soon. It's ready to go. So literally the minute we good to go, we've got everything lined up. We literally just need to pull the trigger.
I mean, Neil, when you moved into canning, it kind of changed your business model completely. Eh? It changed your whole brewing model completely, didn't it?
Oh, it shot everything forward for us. I mean, going into cans. I mean,
Sorry, go on.
No, go.
No. I mean, Rory, you obviously haven't been selling packaged beer for quite a while, eh? But it's something that you're coming back to. By the sounds of it.
This is going to be very, very new to us. Our whole model that we've got built up is going to be new to us. So whoever does order, please go easy on us if there's any hiccups. But yeah, I'm super excited actually. If we do get through this, we might even come out the other side with a whole new angle of getting our beer out there. This is something we've been wanting to do for a very long time. We just haven't had the ability to do it, but now we've had our hand forced. So hopefully this opens up a whole new revenue stream for us if it works well and we can get that packaged product good. So we're still going to be pushing for people to drink that beer as fresh as possible. The fresher you can drink it from when you receive it, the better.
Did you guys see a move to growlers at all in South Africa? Like growlers have obviously been around for a while and they're quite popular, but I mean in the States, you know, the guys will package a beer in a oversized can, like call it a liter or whatever, and seam it like.
The only issue with that is you can't get liter cans in South Africa, so you have to import them, and it becomes quite expensive. Also, the carbon footprints, etc.
If there was a co-op around that could import a whole load, why can't Bevcan make them though? Why like if there was enough pressure on them, they could make them surely.
Yeah, surely, but you got to realize that they're working in like hundreds of thousands of cans at a time. So for them to create the line to make cans of that caliber, it's not going to be cheap. But that is something maybe we should be looking at and maybe seeing if we can get enough people around. I personally, I'm 100% for growlers. I think it's a great plan. great.
Yeah, I mean, they're
move.
still the same as a growler. Hey? You drink them fresh, you drink them within a couple of days, but
If that's the understanding, then I think it's an absolute winner. It has to take up way less space in your fridge than a growler. So
sure, yeah.
And
also, it looks pretty neat. Eh? You go to one of those bars and they fill up a liter can for you and they seam it there, and then you take it and they slap a little makeshift label that you write on or whatever. I like it. And Brendan, you've been doing a couple cans recently, but also traditionally bottles. So like you're kind of very mixed on your packaging distribution.
Look, I would have everything to can. We were just focusing on hoppy beers there first because they're the most sensitive and benefit the most from being can. But the consumer, your IPA buyer, is a much more informed consumer on average than your lager buyer who is looking for a bottle and might see can as something cheap. So
inferior, yeah, for sure. I mean, green bottle with silver foil around the top is
running an online business now. We've got 8-packs that we designed to take these bottles and 2 cans. So the one 8-pack will take 8 bottles, the same 8 or 340 ml bottles. The same 8-pack will take 16 330 ml cans, and they almost weigh the same.
So it's way more environmentally friendly from that aspect.
It's mad and space and all of that, and then beer freshness. So we'll probably end up entirely in can at some point.
Brendan, so
if I had the capital, I would be doing more can. Yeah.
Brendan, when we got our hands on the canning line, one of my biggest concern was exactly what you're saying, that the mass market is not going to respond well to cans because of it smells tinny, or I much prefer drinking a beer out of bottle, and all of the usual things that are associated with cans. It's just all misinformation and
it's bullshit. Education. That's what it is. But carry on.
It is, yeah.
You use your nice, happy misinformation word.
Yeah, exactly. But what we did was, and I didn't want to do it. So I mean, we did a package run of Car Park John, and it was in blank cans. And one of the guys in the brewery got our bottle label, circular Car Park John, and slapped it on the can. And the next thing, we had there must have been about 50 cases of Car Park John that was essentially a blank can with a Car Park John sticker on it. And to this day, I still have people asking me for that specific Car Park John, and I still haven't had the market rebuttal to canned beer. I'm still waiting for people to say that no, they actually want it in a bottle. Yes, there have been guys that have come to the bar and said, look, I'm looking for a case of beer, and I'll come out and we give them a can, and like, oh, don't you have bottles? And then we say to them, well, this is why we package in cans, and we explain the whole reason behind it, but it's been drummed into a lot of us at the moment.
Yeah.
And they switch over immediately. I haven't had a person say, oh, okay, cool, no, I still want to have bottles, but thank you.
Yeah.
They're always like, no, that makes perfect sense. Let me have some cans. So the resistance to cans for me hasn't happened yet. I'm still waiting for it. So I think we must just do it.
Well, I think this is a perfect time as well. That this is where you can start looking at the positives of all of this mess. I think people are going to be willing to buy any beer, whatever it is. So at the moment, so now's the opportunity to be like, hey, here's this product in a can.
It'll last longer.
It'll last longer. It's better. Less space in your fridge. I mean, I'm sure every time you need your cheese, you have to shuffle 17 different things to get your cheese out, then repack the fridge, and you need to keep calm while anything else is going on. So less space in the fridge, get cold quicker. That's almost enough reason for most people. And then on top of it, when you explain the benefits of the beer, which is very obvious, but only obvious once you understand the details of beer. It's just I think there's a few opportunities around that we could capitalize on.
Yeah.
So Murray's asking a question here, which is one of those questions that I hate, because like is a gun to your head now, or how do we answer this? But he says, if all beer styles became extinct during lockdown, if you could save one, which one would it be? So let's start with Neil, and then I'll work around here. What beer style would you save, Neil?
He knows exactly it's what I answered the last time you asked that question. I said the experimental beer style.
Perfect.
Category 33C or something like that. Yeah.
So everything else is extinct, so nothing else exists. So 34C embodies everything else, right?
That just ends all answers.
There you go, Murray. We don't need to answer. We don't need to ask anyone else now, because that's everyone's answer now.
If I had to answer it correctly and choose one, I would definitely go for New England IPA. I mean, that's my favorite.
And Rory?
I would probably, I would have gone IPAs. Anything big and hoppy. I like big, bright flavors. In general, big, bold, bright flavors.
Yeah.
But I think now in this current mindset, I'm looking at things that are going to last. So I'm thinking sour beers, things that are more robust and can last.
Bread Imperial stouts, yeah.
That'll last forever.
It'll last forever. or lambic style beers that have like 40-year. Yeah. And Brendan,
I said before that my desert island beer, if I was forced to drink one beer, not because I think it's the best, or I'm also a hophead, it's probably what I'd reach for almost as often. But like the Rodenbach Classic, it's a tart beer that can last quite a long time. Super refreshing, great with food, great at 40 degrees, great at 0 degrees, super versatile, and just never not in the mood for one of them. It's kind of
the only caveat I'm going to add there, I know you've got it on your site, but I don't think that's the beer we should all be buying now. When we can buy beer again, we need to buy beers from local producers and those guys.
100%,
I mean,
100%.
Yeah, it's a great beer, and it's exactly, it's great value for money, but it's not the beer we need to be buying now.
Yeah,
that's my only caveat to your reply.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah.
David's a bit bleak because David should be in PE with you right now, Neil.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was going to head up the garden route and head up to PE after.
We can try and figure out. We would have been able to try and figure out why his hibiscus pale ale wasn't getting much color.
No, he got it, I think, eventually. I think the second batch he did was David. Tell me in the comments, but I think your latest batch was pretty good. I think I've seen videos of it.
Is that you guys have done a lot more hibiscus than I have, but I've recently become quite aware of how colors and pH play a huge part. So hibiscus, like if the pH isn't low enough, you end up with like a blue drink instead of a pink or purple drink.
But it also depends how much hibiscus you add in. Because I mean, when I did flowers for Rosa with Paul, we added basically about 2 grams per liter of dried hibiscus. So it was a hell of a lot of hibiscus we added, and that actually drove the pH of the beer down quite a bit. I think it drove it down to about 3.8, 3.9, which is a bit on the low side for the style. But it definitely didn't come out bluish. It definitely went like a nice deep red color. Maybe if I added less, it would have, like you said, gone blue.
Yeah, 3.9 is quite low. I think as soon as you get above that, it starts to play issues. When we did our watermelon, we actually used a bit of black carrot to get that red color coming through. And that was the biggest advice I got, was make sure your pH is all right. Otherwise, you end up with a blue or a purple.
I mean, if you look at like butterfly blue tea from Thailand, that's what like Six Dogs uses in their gin. It's what I use in my Wawu tonic. I mean, that is like a classic example of what you're talking about. It's extremely pH sensitive. So as soon as the pH is more alkaline or basic, I mean, it's deep purple, deep blue, which the tonic is. In our case, the tonic is like a bluish, purplish color. But as soon as you tweak that, add a bit of carbonation to it and drop the pH, it then becomes reddish pinkish. So yeah, I'm sure hibiscus would be quite similar to that as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
David says that he nailed the second batch. The color was perfect, and the wife loves it. It was her favorite beer, I think, at Fools and Fans last year.
Awesome. I hope he was going to bring a beer or a sample for me to try when he came to visit.
I'm sure he was. I think he loaded his suitcases already, but had to unpack them. What advice would you give to somebody who's interested in contract brewing?
I think it's a great, it's a great way to start. It's a risk managed way to start. You know, I think you got to come in. I don't think there's a lot of room in the South African market for contract brewing lagers.
No.
I think you got to come in as a niche producer, and you got to come in with passion and differentiation, and choose a producer that's got a track record of doing good things and having a good reputation. But I think it's a great way to start in a risky play. Beer, you know, craft beer is a tough space in South Africa. I just think if you're going to be twice the price, you're going to need to be, if you're going to be twice the price for a lager of, you know, the macro beers out there, you're going to need to have some really strong brand pull or some conspicuous consumption edge that you're running. Otherwise, it's, you know, the consumer is just going to ask the question, what am I paying twice the price for? However, you know, I do think there's scope to produce great products that are differentiated, that plot on the other side of the beer graph from macro beer, and do a good job and innovate in that area. But I would, you know, there's enough tank space around the country. We don't need more tanks and more capital. Use the assets that are out there. I mean, Mark, you're a great example of, you know, producing, you know, really great character for beers, 100% through your contract brewing arrangements.
Yeah, I think it's about finding the right person that you can work with. Steve is certainly that person for me, and not being scared about annoying the hell out of them. You know, I mean, I'm seriously pedantic, and Steve will back me up on this, but I annoy the hell out of him. You know, like even like from the first day, it's like, is it fermenting yet? Is it like, what's happening with this? So we added this, like, you know, it's just constant, and luckily he tolerates that kind of shit from me, so it works. But yeah, I think brewing something that's interesting, different, not really available, and also like my philosophy has always been to brew something that's not really being brewed, because for whatever reason, you know, like seriously hoppy New England IPAs are difficult for people to sell. Rory, you've got away with it because of your location and because you can sell to people that come in there. But to sell like seriously hoppy IPAs is tricky. Eh? I mean, it's the price point you have to get to in order to break even on that beer is tough. And that was always my concept behind Feral, was to sell a beer that we didn't have that much of to try and sell, and we could just push out there at a price that seemed obscene, but is actually the correct price. If you look in
the first few batches of Giant IPA, we did math, and we were actually paying people to drink our beer.
Yeah. No, for sure. I'm sure. Even now, like, I mean, all the batches I've done, we've broken even on, which is wrong, and I need to change that like philosophy, because it doesn't help you guys make those.
It makes
the
it difficult.
way I see contract brewing is, I mean, it's a stepping stone. But I mean, the first thing I say to guys that approach me to want to brew at RHBC is like, well, just please understand you're not going to make any money.
Yeah.
First off, it's not a way to make money, but it is a way to create a customer base and to create a following for the brands that you are curating. As long as you're making good, interesting beers like you guys are discussing, then you've got a good foothold to open up your own brewery and start. Because there's nothing worse than taking the plunge, buying a brewery, having to do 1,000 liters at a time, and then you can't sell it because you've got no one that knows your product. But if you've been contract brewing for a couple of years and you've got a following, at least then you can sell that beer.
So Andrew asks here, have any of you guys ever been approached to do a contract brew for a restaurant that isn't a lager, like a house pale ale or a house IPA or anything like that?
I had one today, actually.
Lager.
No,
Yeah.
it's been lager. Yeah. You know, but
we've been pretty lucky. We've been approached by some like really good chefs, and we actually lined up beer that's in tank right now, but because of the situation, they postponed their opening dates, and we were doing a bit of a collaboration with an IPA and a pale ale.
Nice.
To pair, which is quite exciting.
But you guys are quite you're quite pally with the guys at Chef's Warehouse, eh? I think you need to get Giant in at Thali, their Indian tapas restaurant. They have some pretty boring craft beer on tap there. I've been there a few times. It's an amazing restaurant. The food is like the Indian food is phenomenal, but I've always been disappointed with my beer choice, and Giant would pair amazingly with that.
I think you could probably repeat that for 98% of the restaurants that you go to.
Yeah, but I mean, but that one in particular, I mean, that food is amazing, and I think it deserves a beer to pair with it. That's that's deserving of the food. You know, the wine list is awesome, and the beer menu is not.
yeah, that's a sad truth. That's what the market's like. But yeah, the same Marble restaurant in Rosebank, very fancy restaurant, big wine cellar. They got a 40,000 rand bottle of, I can't remember, it's one of the French first growths, and then the wine was the beer was Heineken. I was just like, my eyes just about popped out of my head. I was like, come on.
Yeah.
But
60 bucks a pint as well.
You got to realize that it's that's just the world we're living in at the moment, and it's up to us to tackle that head on in a non sort of arrogant way of just saying like, hey, try this, and let's try this beer with some of your dishes, and let's see if it works. If it works, we consider putting it on the menu.
Yeah, for sure.
Murray from Fermented, we were planning. In fact, it would have happened already, but for COVID, I think the beer versus wine with Klein River cheese, the sort of taste shootout. It's a great way to get people thinking of beer the way they think of wine.
I did one down here with Drifter.
I use the wine analogy with people all the time. Like, you can talk about craft beer the way you talk about wine, and talk about macro beer the way you talk about box wine. There's room in your life for everything. South Africa actually has some decent box wine. You don't want to spend lots of money. So I use that analogy helpfully often, and it helps get people's minds around price stratification, quality, pairing with food, not having to drink it by the bucket, but just having, a couple at night. So yeah, I think the more events like that, or ways we can kind of get people thinking that way, the better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Andrew comments here that Indian and beers is bliss, and I agree. I actually went for an Indian with him and a friend of ours, Graham, and we walked in, we sat down, and the beer list was dismal. And we said to the guy, the owner, is there any way we can pay a corkage fee and go and buy some beers from the Tops next door? And he's like, yeah, of course. And it was $50 or $100. I don't know. It was cheap. It was like the corkage fee was nominal. We went to the Tops. We bought some of the Mad Giant Killer Hop and the IPA, and I don't know what else. There was a couple other beers we bought in there. I mean, the Tops wasn't amazing, but the beers that we bought were 100 times better than. I mean that Mad Giant Killer Hop with a curry, or yeah. What's his IPA called? I always forget the name.
Urban Legend.
Urban Legend. I mean, flip that beer with a curry is insane, and it just pairs perfectly with the spicy foods. And And the fact that they had like, I don't know what on tap, like Heineken or probably fucking Budweiser or some shit like that, you know, and why? Like why have that on tap? Because that's what everyone wants. But if people actually tried a proper beer with the right food, it would.
An IPA with a mature cheddar, just like unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's a great beer.
Plain River
Right,
is
guys.
probably one of my favorite cheeses. So
Which one? Plain River.
Cheesery. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for joining us for this one. I think we're going to wrap it up here, unless you guys have anything else to add.
No, thanks.
Well,
That was therapeutic or cathartic or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I
These
certainly
times-
feel better. I might be just because of the serious beers
Layers
we
of
just
beer.
drank here. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks
We
very much.
started out a bit gloomy, but we got there in the end.
I think I had to start out gloomy. I don't think there was any choice. I think that was the state we're in. And I think tomorrow we'll wake up and we'll be
We
a bit
also
gloomy.
weren't drunk at that stage.
Speak the truth.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm going to go and have some more beers and some.
Yeah, I've got
Gonna
a fair
pair
amount of work to get through, so I'll be feeling good later.
I'm going to drink some boxed wine because that's all I've got left. And I'm not turning my nose up at all.
How's your whiskey stash doing, Rory?
I depleted, but I've actually, that's one of my prized possessions I've been accumulating over the years. So I have a fair amount of good whiskey sitting in the cupboard. Apart from last night, I depleted a fair amount of it. But yeah, no, it's still going quite strong.
Sorry, one more question. Tom has a question here. The festival was cancelled. So yeah, Fools and Fans was postponed. We were hoping to announce a date next week on Friday. But obviously we can't. So we'll have to wait until 21 days from now to hopefully announce that date. But it's tricky to put that date out there now because we have a provisional date, but that might be out of our control. So I don't want to really announce that. And then were there any special beers that won't make it out now? Yeah, I mean, Niall, I suppose you've got one. Rory, you've got some beers. Brendan, you spoke about them as well. So, and I did a beer with Olaf and the Wine Thief, which is still just sat in kegs, but it will probably mature quite nicely. So hopefully all the beers will still make it out there, assuming that we don't go past the end of the month, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll put some beer on our shop. We literally made a keg of each of two specialties, the dry hop kombucha and the carrot cake ale. So I'll package that keg and either serve it at another quite artisanal oriented festival or just slap it on the website. But yeah, we don't. I mean, it was quite a big beer, so it has good shelf life. We don't have anything that the kombucha unfortunately ended up going down the drain. I couldn't take care of it in time for lockdown, but again, small batch, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, we try not to. We never want to damage our brand, but we try not to send good beer down the drain. We try to find a channel for it somewhere.
Yeah, no, for sure. Right, guys, thank you. Thanks for taking part in this. It's always good to get a bit of a positive spin at the end of a pretty bleak week. But thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
And thank you,
Thanks,
Mark.
Mark.
Yeah,
Cheers,
thanks
guys.
for organizing, man.
No, not at all.
Very
Not at
much.
all.
It's been a good Friday.
Friday.
Good Friday, good one. So thanks for joining us, guys. Hopefully that was a bit of an insight, and hopefully, we can carry on supporting craft breweries. And yeah, when we come out of this, hopefully at the end of the month, these guys will still be around. But do your best to support them now. Get on social media, give them reviews, give them some love, and yeah, until next time, cheers.